What if I told you there is a player that could play this weekend for the Rams that would help their edge presence and a guy that you might have actually completely forgotten about? That's right. Ochaun Mathis, the 189th overall pick in the 6th round of the 2023 NFL draft. 6'5", 250 pounds, 35 and a quarter inch arms, 10 and 3/4 inch hands. He ran a 4.74. He had a 1.64 10-yard split. He's a guy Lance Zierlein, after he was drafted, called a lottery ticket that the Rams scratched off to see if they had something in 2 to 3 years like what he looked like at TCU. If you don't know Ochaun Mathis, he's a TCU pass rusher that ends up having an amazing 2020 season. Looked really good on tape. I actually just finally watched him. And the TCU tape stands out, but then he transfers. Okay, the Rams actually drafted 2 TCU transfers, him and Zach Evans. But he transfers, goes to Nebraska, and just it's not the same. It's not the same scheme. He just doesn't look the same. I don't know if it was coaching. Nebraska hasn't exactly been great lately. So that's something interesting there. But his TCU stuff, I understand it was 2020, but he was 38th ranked in all of college football, according to PFF, 23rd in pressures, 3rd in defensive stops, and he was tied for 4th in sacks. This is a 4-year starter who has just got traits everywhere athletically. He's got monster hands, incredibly long arms, like I mentioned, a short area burst. He can bend off the edge. And I think he's going to be a potential stout defender. He actually, and this is the most important thing, not true because I have a scoop. This is one of the most important things in this video that you'll hear. Jordan Rodriguez reported earlier in the year that he was splitting time with Byron Young. The injury allowed Young to take over that starting spot, but at one point or another, this guy was going for it. He was really going for it. A 6th rounder who some were saying was 2 years away from being 2 years away and raw, even though he's 24 years old and he's one of the older players that they drafted. That's saying a lot. Before he got injured in camp, he was right there splitting time and pushing Byron Young, who looks awesome. Like, he's top 15 in pressures at the edge defender position. He's been everything you could ask for in a 3rd-round pass rusher. But here's the thing about Ochaun. He misses all of preseason. He gets hurt. And the really intriguing thing here, because actions speak louder than words, the Rams kept him on the 53-man roster just that one day. And the reason they did that is so they would be able to take him off of injured reserve and bring him back this year. So he goes on IR right after that day. He just needed to be on the 53-man roster for one day. The next day, he gets sent over to IR. What that did was allow him, because he was on the active 53-man roster at the start of the season, it allowed him now to be designated to return after 4 weeks. That's the IR. That's why Cooper Kupp was designated. But alas, today, news came out. The Rams have designated Ochaun Mathis to return. Now, why is this a big deal? He's a 6th rounder. He's 189th overall. 2 years away from being 2 years away. All sorts of stuff about how raw he is, whatever. Why is it a big deal? Well, what if he's not raw? What if, in fact, he's actually ready to go? He's got incredible athletic traits, and he just got into a bad spot at Nebraska. I mean, what if he is that TCU pass rusher? What if he is that guy who had almost 10 sacks? I mean, if he is, the Rams don't have much at edge right now. And maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe the Rams have been waiting for this guy. Now, he's going to have to get caught up to speed and acclimated and everything in practice, but he did just get activated into the 21-day window. He gets 3 weeks to get back on the field. Now, the interesting thing about this, because I just feel like it just continues to get interesting, and I'm getting a weird vibe here, because I'm not saying he's going to be Puka Nacua or anything like that. But this draft, I feel like everyone could do something. Like, for real. Everyone that they got in this draft feels like somebody that could emerge. And Ochaun Mathis was probably the least, I felt like the least great I felt about any of them, but I didn't really know him that well, to be fair. I didn't get to finish my eval on him, and that was evident. I finally just watched him, like watched his TCU and watched his Nebraska. I didn't watch his TCU tape before the draft. I only watched his Nebraska film. He is so much better at TCU. And some would say, it's 2020, Jake. Like, if he was good in 2020, maybe he peaked. I don't know. I just don't think he was a fit at Nebraska. And we've seen that before. You know, we're seeing it more and more with the transfer portal and how it's so open. Guys aren't fits, so they're not going to sit there and hurt their draft stock. They're going to transfer out. So, look, is Ochaun Mathis going to be the next best thing since sliced bread? Probably not. But number 32, and yes, he is wearing number 32, is an interesting guy moving forward because he's got the size of Terrell Lewis. Okay? He's got that 6'5", 250 pound. I think Lewis was probably 260, so not quite. But he's very similar in that size, and he's very athletic. He doesn't have anywhere near the injury history that former third-round pick Terrell Lewis had. And what I find really interesting about this whole thing, McVay mentioned being excited about him getting on the grass potentially this week against Philly on the Coach McVay show. Now, this is somebody, and this, if he does play, and he plays on the defensive side of the ball, Michael Hoyt is not, he's not playing well. Like, he's not bad. He's a solid rotational defender. To have him starting, to have him dropping in coverage more than any defender out there, edge defender, is insane to me. So I'm hoping that somebody like this can emerge. And they've had guys in the past who have had good games and then kind of fallen off. You know, Trayvon Young had some moments and he kind of fell out. Chris Garrett had a really good preseason and he ended up getting cut the next year after injury. Daniel Hardy. So they've drafted these late round pass rushers before and it hasn't really gone anywhere. This might be different. Like, something about this, you know, they say listen to your gut. My gut is telling me this guy's going to not be just a paperweight. Like, we're going to see him moving forward. And sure enough, I've been told, you know, by somebody that I've talked to that knows that we should expect to see him getting significant reps this year. So I'm just saying, this isn't somebody that is a sixth rounder that they're just going to throw on special teams. He could very well play special teams. But they wouldn't have gone through the hassle and used him up because they don't have that many. I think you only get 4 guys that you can take off of IR, designate to return. So they decided to return this guy. And I don't know. Something tells me they're onto something here. And at this point, can you even doubt the Rams with what they've done in this draft? I mean, Byron Young, Steve Avila, Kobe Turner, Puka Nacua. I mean, if this guy ends up being an elite pass rusher, I won't even be shocked. It would come out of seemingly nowhere, but so did Puka Nacua, right? But all jokes aside, in all seriousness, I like this kid. He's 24 years old, like I mentioned. He's got incredible athletic traits. I like the bend. I like the short area quickness and explosion. I like his he's got kind of like a little whip move that he does. You know, I think, you know, his double arm swat that I've noticed. This guy, keep an eye out for number 32. That's all I'm going to say. I've talked enough about him. I'm curious what you guys think in the comments section, but I wanted to put the flashlight or the spotlight on number 32, Ochaun Mathis, in case you guys forgot. Because I thought this guy was going to be more of a traitsy, project that they, keep around and see if he turns into something. But what I'm hearing, the fact that he's going to get significant reps, which is the words that were used, significant reps. Something about that really excites me. So maybe the Rams don't end up having to trade for an edge defender. Can you imagine a world in which the Rams find 2 starting edge defenders in the draft in the 3rd and 6th round to go with Puka Nacua? This draft, and Kobe Turner and Avila, this draft is really shaping up to be a game changer. And when you talk about just everything that, roster management and roster, structure and creation, what that all takes. If you have 14 picks and you hit on 7 out of those 14, that can change your fortunes for a long time. That can essentially rewrite your franchise. And I feel like the Rams may have done that at the very least. We'll see if more happens. Nick Hampton still hasn't had a chance. My guy Blaine Grisak posted all the Nick Hampton stuff on Twitter. You should go check him out at bgrisak TST. Excuse me. But it'll be interesting because Nick Hampton was a really good defender in coverage going back to App State. So they have these guys dropping coverage a lot. Ochaun didn't really drop in coverage a ton. So maybe you see something where Ochaun starts playing more. And then you have now Byron Young dropping into coverage. I don't know how they want to do it, but this guy's going to get significant reps from what I'm being told. So keep a lookout. Ochaun Mathis, the former Nebraska Cornhusker and TCU Horned Frog, now turned Ram, now getting a shot potentially this weekend. Number 32, be on the lookout. I warned you. You guys take care. Later, folks.